Why, hi there. I'm Ron Juckett, and welcome to another edition of the DoDCast, the 224th edition of the DoDCast on this 22nd day of February 2018. There's baseball tomorrow. It's the Astros and the Nats at 1 o'clock, and we'll have live coverage for you on Twitter. Joining me tonight, as always, my partner in crime, Drew Douglas. That's not who you just saw, though. One of our newer writers on staff, Blake Finney. How are you, Blake?
I'm doing good. I'm still adjusting to the weather in America now. We had 20 degrees Celsius yesterday, and now it's snowing.
Now, Blake doesn't go too far. He's from England and now lives in New England. You know, just a little change of address. We don't do things in Celsius. It was 70 yesterday down where you are, and you had snow today because everyone else that I follow in Boston on Twitter was, well, let's just say complaining about it would be the proper word. Blake, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and some of your baseball background?
Yeah, so I've been following the Nationals for about 10 years now. So it was about the same time when they drafted Strasburg. Been following from afar from the UK, so I've lived there my whole life until October of this year when I, as Ron said, moved to New England. So went to my first Nationals games last year in July for my birthday. And also on top of that, I've played baseball, managed baseball and umpired baseball back home in the UK, which has been kind of given me a greater insight into the game as well.
How much has the game grown there? And what got you interested in baseball?
I think I have to blame my dad for getting me interested in baseball. He lived in Chicago during his teens and picked up on the Cubs from there. So that's how I ended up getting into it. The game's definitely growing in popularity in terms of watching Major League Baseball. One of the major TV companies there has picked up on it now and starts regularly showing games in the evenings and overnight when there's nothing else on. And then playing the game is still amateur, but I can certainly see it picking up in the next few years.
Hope so. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of fire in the Netherlands. Beyond the old Netherlands Antilles. It'd be nice to see baseball catch on to Europe.
Yeah, I think they're semi-professional in the Netherlands, and we've also got. I remember seeing something earlier this year about a series coming to the UK in 2020, if I remember right.
I think I saw today that Oakland and Seattle are going to open up in Tokyo next year.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Which is great. Well, that's awesome. So tomorrow's the start of the preseason. The endless parade of games against the Houston Astros, St. Louis Cardinals, and Miami Marlins begins tomorrow. Actually, it's great. It's baseball on Dave Martinez's first day, or Davey, I guess he wants to be called. He's going to go with Big Tommy Malone tomorrow, and Tanner Roark on Saturday. Don't expect to see a lot of regulars. New rule this year, after March 1st, guys, road teams have to use 4 regulars. They don't have to do it the first, week as I look at the calendar. That's a departure from years past, Drew, when you would never see a regular on the road in a preseason, in an exhibition game.
Yeah, I like that rule change. I mean, I don't think they'll play a whole lot, but I mean, sometimes, especially if you have split squad games, you'll go to a spring training game and just see absolutely no one you've even heard of. And I mean, maybe at best you see a bench player or two, but it's just all kinds of prospects that are nowhere near even joining the 40-man roster. So I'm glad that they made that rule change, and it should make these monotonous spring training games maybe at least a little more exciting.
Well, at least you don't have to worry about extra innings. And, of course, don't forget the first couple of weeks, the pitchers don't hit, so we all have DHs, which is good because, hopefully eventually that rule gets changed. I know that's blasphemy for hard-time old core National League fans, but because pitchers don't even hit until they reach AA and then don't hit in spring training an awful lot, it just makes the games flow a little bit better. Blake, this is not your first exhibition season. I know that in soccer parlance or football parlance from your part of the world, the bigger teams in the Premier League do foreign tours for their preseason. What do you make of this 5 or 6 weeks of pretty much playing every day in the kind of like this TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the points are made up and they don't matter?
I think in terms of the length of it, I think it's primarily for the pitcher's benefit. It takes so long to go from pitchers reporting, what was it, a week and a bit ago, and stretching them out so they, best case scenario, could throw 9 innings. It takes a little bit of time. You've got to build up. That's why in the first few games you see them go maybe 2-3 innings and gradually build their arm up because it's such a stressful job pitching.
Absolutely. And remember, the stats don't mean anything, even though I think Tommy Malone's appearance tomorrow actually will mean something if he wants to make the team. How much pressure, Drew, is on a player like that when you know you have limited chances to show yourself in actual game situations?
I think he doesn't necessarily expect to make the Major League roster, so maybe not that much pressure in terms of opening day. But, I mean, if we see a starting pitcher or two get hurt, he's going to want to make a good impression now. So that'll be kind of in the back of Davey Martinez's mind, in the back of Mike Rizzo's mind when they're trying to decide who to call up and replace the injured starter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And whoever starts on Sunday, and I don't believe that was announced, Mark Zuckerman was the one that came up with the starters tomorrow and Saturday, would be in line to start the 29th in Cincinnati on the true opening day. So my guess is that we would see Scherzer pitch on Sunday. And if we don't, I think that would be kind of a minor surprise, guys, don't you?
I think oh, go ahead.
I think it might be a little bit, but at this point, I'm not sure they're really focusing on lining guys up for a certain start and a certain day to start.
Yeah, I was gonna echo that. I think it's at this early stage, there's not too much lining up. I think at this stage, you just want to see each guy make their appearance, do what they need to do in that appearance, and then in a few weeks, you want to start lining it up with your actual regular season rotation.
Only reason why I brought that up was because the Giants announced, the San Francisco Giants, as opposed to the New York Giants, announced that Madison Bumgarner is starting Sunday, and he'll be their opening day starter, which makes it 6 years in a row. So it wasn't just something that kind of creeped into my head. Not that desperate to figure out, how things line up. It was something that was brought to my attention, and so that's why I brought it up. So he will make his 6th opening day start for the Giants, the second most in history, behind Juan Marichal. Just in case anyone was wondering who made the most opening day starts in Giants history. All right. I suppose if there was a player, guys, that I'm most looking forward to seeing, and I'll throw this to Blake after, I'm curious to see what Victor Robles can do over the course of an exhibition season. Blake?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think he's the so-called headline grabber in this game tomorrow. He's the name that jumps off the page. I think one of the people I'm interested to see is Pedro Severino. He's, I think he was on that lineup sheet. It's his first chance to really make an impression and make a start for that backup catcher's job behind Wheaters.
Yeah, Drew, that's going to be the kind of the storyline to go through. Is it going to be Severino or is it going to be Miguel Montero?
Yeah, right now I think I'd probably be leaning towards Montero. Obviously, Davey Martinez is already familiar with him from his days in Chicago. He is a good veteran presence. Martinez has raved about his game-calling abilities, and while maybe Nats fans aren't too high on him defensively because of that game back in July or whenever it was when Nats stole 7 bases off of him and ran his mouth after the game, got himself ran out of Chicago, but if you look at his numbers, he is an above-average defensive catcher. Had a good offensive season a couple years ago. He kind of struggled the last couple of years. But just with the season Severino had last year, I think Montero has the upper hand right now, and it's kind of his job to lose.
I know that when I was doing the piece on the projections using Fangraphs, that they projected that Montero would get more at-bats than Severino. And what do you have to say to get dumped in the middle of a road trip? It's not like they brought him home and said, "Please don't come to the stadium." They dumped him in DC.
Yeah, he didn't exactly do himself a favor running his mouth after the game.
I guess another name I'm curious to watch is Juan Soto. As you guys all know, there were no trades this winter by the Nationals, and so all those core prospects
Have we lost Ron?
I think so. I thought it was on my end, so I just left. But I guess I'll take it from here. Oh, there he is.
Go ahead, Drew.
But yeah, I think obviously the Nationals didn't make any trades this offseason, so Soto is still there, and I'm sure I didn't see his name on the list of guys with the major league invite, but I mean I think he will get some at bats, especially in days where they have kind of a split squad game. So he is a little bit younger than Robles, but he's had guys are raving about both of them. I've actually heard some people say that they're projecting Soto to be a little bit better than Robles. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what Soto can offer, even though he is only 18 or 19 years old.
And the camera, now it goes to me. I've lost Drew's video, and so that whole thing was it was show like this last year.
Gone again.
I'm back. Everyone's back. We had a show last year where Ricky's camera never worked. And so the entire time that Ricky's talking, it's got me doing, because when there's just two of us, you only see the person that's talking. But when there's three, we see everybody. So for the entire 25, 30 minutes that we're doing is all you see when it's not my turn to talk is this. I'm not being disrespectful, but I know I'm not on camera, but I can't see it because and so I had no idea. What's in the chat, Drew?
Seth said, "Hey guys," and he loves the voice. Greetings, Blake. I would assume he's talking about your voice.
Yeah, I think the accent likes to win over.
And then he also said that he thinks Strasburg is the opening day starter.
I don't think we need to create a controversy. How could you not go with the two-time defending Cy Young? It wasn't like last year when Scherzer was nursing the finger. I'd be stunned if it wasn't Scherzer. Absolutely stunned.
Yeah, I agree. Even though on probably like 20 other major league teams, Strasburg would be taking the ball opening day. The Nationals isn't one of them, and even you just have to give it to Scherzer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Boston. It's Sale, Kershaw, and Bumgarner. I mean, even the Cubs, I would take over that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. What did I miss when Comcast decided I had to switch?
Nothing really.
We were just staring into space, hoping for you to come back.
I did. I made it back. I made it back for my own show. All right. Oh yeah. So the deal between the Nats and Joaquin Benoit became finalized, I guess, today, from what Bob Nightingale says. It's a 1-year guaranteed for $1 million. And incentives, I'm not quite sure what they are, could net him another $1 million. I assume that this is to cover for whatever injury that happened to Coda Glover, which we'll get into in a minute. But that's not necessarily a bad insurance policy to have. I'll start with Blake on this one.
Yeah, I think I liken it to when we signed Joe Blanton last year, about this time last spring. We signed him on $4 million, took a gamble because he done fairly well for the Dodgers the season before, and I think we've got him for half the price. So it's not a bad gamble. And then if Glover does come back and recover from this shoulder soreness, which obviously isn't a certainty, it's not too much to just let him go.
Yeah, that was the point I was about to make, Drew. I mean, I actually commented on that on Twitter. I mean, that it's cheap and it's edible. The Nats, who are notorious for not eating contracts, would eat that contract in a minute, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I would think so. And I mean, with everything going on with Coda Glover, where he was shut down in June of last year with shoulder inflammation and reported to camp again this year with shoulder inflammation, I think Benoit is a great insurance policy. He's kind of struggled a little bit last year, but he had an ERA below 3 in 6 of the previous 7 seasons. So he is a little older, but I think he definitely could bounce back this year.
Saying he's a little bit older is like saying I have a lot of hair.
He's actually closer in age to Davey Martinez than he is to Bryce Harper.
Yeah, he's 40. Don't knock those of us who are in our 40s, okay? Kid. In all seriousness, as long as he's not in any leverage situations, I think it's fine. If you're finding that Benoit is pitching in the 8th inning of a tie game, we have some issues. Now I'm going to blow his name at some point this year, and you're going to go, oh, that's not a hard name to pronounce. In Vermont, but Benoit is French, and you would think that up here that would be, since we have a lot of French-speaking people, that Benoit would be the natural way to pronounce that. But that's not how it's usually pronounced up here. It's pronounced Benoit, or Joan Benoit Samuelson, the runner. From the town that my mother lives in, there are some famous deer hunters. And yes, there are famous deer hunters, and their last name is Benoit. And so I know at some point on a DoDCast this year, I'm going to be half asleep, one of those Central Division or one of those Rocky games, and he's going to come in, and I'm going to be going through the pictures, and instead of saying Benoit, and Benoit gave us a scoreless inning too. No, it's Benoit. Okay, so I teased that one, Blake, to Drew earlier, and said I would explain that on the show. So that's why. Famous deer hunters. Gotta love New Englanders. We talked a little bit about the Glover injury. I think this kind of caught most people by surprise that they would even allow him to throw. He was throwing in January, from what we understand, and is hurt again. I mean, at this point, you kind of have to wonder, is he ever going to be in shape in his entire career? Drew?
Yeah, and I would hope he's eventually in shape, because what we've seen of him, I mean, his numbers aren't great. I think they're a little inflated due to pitching through various injuries, but his slider and his fastball, which reaches triple digits, is just such an unhittable combination. And I think he has the potential to be an elite reliever and a closer eventually, but he just needs to stay on the field for more than a couple of games at a time. And I'm glad that he did tell the team this time around that he was dealing with shoulder inflammation, because we've seen him in the past attempt to pitch through things like this, but just really frustrating to see him hurt once again.
When he's healthy, he has the mindset to be a closer. He's just that much off center that he pitches with that chip on his shoulder, and that's what makes closers effective. Now, once they lose their mojo, Jonathan Papelbon, then you just give up a lot of long, loud home runs. But from what I saw from Glover last year, both in spring training, when I was surprised he didn't get the closer, and the 2 weeks that he held the job before he got hurt, he's a closer. He's a closer of the future. Blake, did you see any of his performances last year? I mean, you know enough about baseball to understand that you kind of have to be the nuts to be a closer.
Yeah, I think every time I've watched him pitch, you see the raw stuff. What is he, 22, 23, still young. And if he can come back, I think he is the obvious closer of the future. I think Doolittle's done a great job, and he should absolutely keep it. But if Glover starts to get that consistency and stays healthy, he could absolutely take the role over in 2019, 2020.
He has years and years of control left. I want to see what Enny Romero can do. I've been high on him. I remember when they traded for him, I think for the most traded for player in baseball history, Mr. Cash considerations. Or maybe there was actually a player that went for that for him. When he mixes his off-speed stuff with that triple-digit fastball of his, it could be devastating. The big difference, I saw as the year went on from spring training is he now knows where that fastball is going 75% of the time, as opposed to when last spring training, no one knew where that ball was going. So I'd like to see how much he matured this winter, and whether or not if he starts mixing that stuff in, because the only time he started mixing in the breaking stuff last year is when he got tired. If he's going to be effective, it has to be worked together.
Yeah, like you say, as long as he can hit the zone enough, having that velocity makes up for the times that you do miss, because people start chasing because they don't have time to react, and that's what could make him great.
Drew, the other one that I did an article on as a spring training invitee that could be curious is Cesar Vargas, who spent a lot of time with the Yankee organization, and then actually was a starter for San Diego. He relies on a cutter. He throws that cutter an awful lot, but he does in the mid-levels and minor leagues and a little bit in AAA can throw it for a lot of strikes and strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be an option for the bullpen. I don't see him making the rotation over AJ Cole, but the Nationals are really lacking a long reliever right now, and Vargas has starting experience. So I could see him making the transition to being a long reliever and pitching out of the bullpen some. But I think kind of like Malone, if he can at least impress this spring, then he could be on the short list of pitchers to be called up in the case of an injury during the season.
Absolutely. Now, our next little thing is kind of confusing because Mark Zuckerman made a point last week as he started previewing his storylines for spring training, to talk about how well Joe Ross was doing. He's throwing off flat ground from 75 feet. Could be back as early as July. I might give the Nats some options for using 6 starters, especially if the division is headed at the end of the year. But in Jason, I write this stuff down, but I don't keep that one. Jason Martinez is his chat yesterday on MLB Trade Rumors, said he'd be very surprised at all if Ross pitched this year, which kind of caught me off guard. And I hadn't heard anything negative about that. Now, Ross has some durability issues, and coming back from Tommy John surgery takes anywhere from 12 to 15 months. But I don't know if that was just Jason's personal opinion, or is there something, guys, to that? Drew, you've had arm problems in the past. We both thought when we talked about this before off air that Ross was optimistic, but it wasn't unrealistic, right? That he could return this year.
Yeah, when he originally had Tommy John, I kind of assumed he would be out all of this year, but like you said, Zuckerman said that he's trying to come back. I saw a Ross interview the other day, and he said the goal is to be back by July and August at the latest. So I guess we'll see. I kind of trust Zuckerman over Jason Martinez right now, just because Zuckerman is with the team. Martinez is just with MLB Trade Rumors.
Right.
Yeah, I guess initially I would have been surprised to see Ross back this year, but now I think we may actually see him back in August or September.
Blake, what do you think of Ross's future going forward? Because obviously, whether he pitches this year or not, he's going to play a big role for the team in 2019 and in the future.
Yeah, I think when you lose Gio, potentially lose Gio next year, he's then got to potentially step up. Tanner Roark goes up to 3. He could potentially step in as 4. As when he has pitched without injury, he's looked a major league ready starter who could fit in at the middle of the rotation. So you don't want to push him too much this year. So if he is ready by August, you don't want him going into like the 7th, 8th inning at all, because he is a big part of the future.
Gio Gonzalez made great pains to say in an interview this week, and I did the story sometime in the last couple of days, that he wants to stay. You don't think that if he comes close to the 15-9 and around 3.5 ERA again, that they wouldn't try to at least keep him on a short-term deal, Blake?
They could. It's not out of the realms of possibility, but it's the exact sort of noise that you'd expect someone who's out of contract in a year to make, unless your name's Bryce Harper. So we'll see. Maybe it's a bit like Jason Worth, where it kind of makes sense, but it also makes sense to move on. And if the Nats do have the young pitching ready, where you've got Joe Ross, Eric Fedde potentially ready by that point, is it worth keeping Gio around on a 1-year deal when he could go elsewhere and get 2 or 3 years, say?
It's hard to believe, Drew. This potentially is the first time he's ever going to hit free agency.
Yeah, he's been with the Nationals since, I believe they traded for him before the 2012 season, and then that was the first year the Nationals made the playoffs. So, I mean, people usually think of Jason Worth and Ryan Zimmerman as being the longtime Nats, but Gio's been there almost just as long.
Gio has never failed to start less than 27 games. He's been that durable. I was surprised. And I've seen that before, but when I did the article at districtondeck.com, I really was surprised. And that was a 6-player deal. The Nationals traded away for that Brad Peacock, who was the only one of that deal not to come back. He's with the Astros. He won a ring last year. The other 3 pieces that went were Derek Norris, who came back and left, AJ Cole, and crap, I forgot the other.
Tommy Malone.
Yeah.
Tommy Malone is in camp this year. So, the ultimate case of a small world. I would think that Worth was a little bit older. It really depends on what Gio does this year. I mean, if he comes out and is not as sure and struggles with command, I could see them, the last game of the year, regular season, they pitches being like the Jason Worth farewell. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he leaves. But it would have to be like a 1 or 2 year deal. I mean, if Gio wants the 4 or 5 year deal, forget it. But I don't know, 1 year, maybe a 2, I could see it, depending on how well Gio does and depending on what happens with Finney. Personally, just putting it out there. All right, other people that are coming back from injuries. Daniel Murphy, from an article I saw this week or in the last couple of days, is coming back from his knee surgery, but doesn't seem to be in any hurry to do so, which kind of makes you wonder. Davey Martinez thought that he'd be back for opening day. I'm kind of wondering if that's going to be the case or not. True?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be back for opening day. I did put him in the opening day roster prediction just because Martinez has now said several times that Murphy's on track for opening day. But, there's just no reason to rush him back. The Nationals have Howie Kendrick and Wilmer Difo in tow, who can both play second base. And really, the Nationals are all but guaranteed to win the division. They don't need Murphy in April. They need him in October. So, exactly. And Murphy even said himself that once he comes back, he doesn't want to have to go back on the disabled list. So I don't see them rushing him back for opening day.
Are you surprised, though? And I know it's spring training, early practice, so the value is about as much as the caffeine in the seltzer I'm drinking right now. There's none. That they've been working Howie Kendrick at second and Difo at short.
No, I'm not really surprised. I think just getting Difo work everywhere, because I think he will be playing pretty much everywhere, except hopefully not center field again this year. But it's early. I think they're just moving guys around.
To tell tales out of school, some former partner of mine, the night that they played Difo in center field, sent me a message. What the blankety blank are they doing? And that was pretty much my thought when I saw that. Your thoughts, Blake, on whether or not we see Murph on opening day?
Yeah, I think I'd tend to side with Drew on that. I think one of the deciding factors could be how well Difo and Kendrick did last year when they stepped in. If there's no clear replacement level player there, then maybe you do kind of rush him back a bit. But I was particularly impressed with Difo last year in July and August when he was hitting out of his mind. And I think that gives the Nats the comfort level to not rush Murphy back. And like Drew said, you want him in October, not in April.
Absolutely. The one concern I have about Difo is coming off the bench. He played 124 games last year. Another one of those things, even though we all sat and watched most of those games, is like you look at that on the stat sheet on the team page at Baseball Reference and go, what? He really played 124 games? Anyway, the point being that once he found the bench again, he wasn't all that effective. As a starter, he was great. But as a bench player, and so if you're going to use him, it's not going to be as a pinch hitter. He needs to find. I don't think he'll get as much playing time, hopefully, because there won't be as many injuries. But that's a concern. I think that the Nats really want him to, when he does come off the bench, to play well. And as you both have said, it's more important for Murph to be there in October and not March on a cold day in the twilight in Cincinnati. So, which is why when I did the piece on the lineup, I had Trey Turner batting fifth. Now, Blake, you wrote about this for today. Where do you Trey Turner in the lineup? I had him as fifth as protection there because of no Murph. I think if you flopped him and Anthony Rendon, putting Rendon on second and or batting second, and Turner sixth. I think you don't miss a beat. You took a look at most of the options. What conclusion did you come to, Blake?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. We're hitting fifth or sixth, depending on Murphy. You get the best of both worlds because you're allowing him to barrel up the ball, which we know he does so well, even if it's at the expense of quite a few strikeouts at the moment. But you're also, hopefully the bases are cleared because Harper's hit a home run. You give him the space to run because you want him in scoring position for 7 and 8 Wheaters and Taylor before the pitcher comes up.
Absolutely. And you guys agree that Rendon is probably better out of the 2-hole?
I would think so, especially with how many pitches he sees. I mean, his hands are so fast. In 2 strike counts, he can just foul off anything close. And Trey Turner doesn't really see that many pitches. So that's another reason why I think Anthony Rendon is a much better fit in the 2-hole.
Do you guys agree with Adam Eaton being the leadoff hitter, Blake?
Yeah, as of right now, I think I posted one of the stats in that post where his on-base percentage is 0.02 higher than Turner. It doesn't sound a lot, but
that's a lot.
Yeah, over the course of a season, it makes a huge difference, and I think right now that's what you got to go with. Obviously, Trey's your leadoff hitter of the future because his speed is that game-changing, but as of right now, I think it's got to be Eaton.
Drew?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think right now, Adam Eaton, assuming he's healthy, but maybe in a couple years we see Trey Turner take over that role.
Yeah, I think he's destined to be a leadoff hitter. I see a lot of Tim Raines in him, and a little bit of Ricky Henderson, even though Ricky was a better base stealer. But with Turner, you have a guy that can potentially steal you 50 bases and hit 20 home runs. You know, that's a modern prototypical leadoff hitter. But as you guys have said, he doesn't take a lot of pitches. He presses too hard. He's just unseasoned. And I think a lot of that, even though this is his 3rd season coming up, he's yet to play a full season in the majors. He played 77 games and 16 and with a broken wrist last year. He only played 93. All right, one more thing that wasn't on the outline, but it came up in the course of conversation. I'll start with Blake. Were you bothered by what Bryce Harper's press conference not wanting to talk about the future and just focusing on this year?
Not at all. I think it's perfectly reasonable. This is the year he wants to win a World Series. He doesn't need to worry about that stuff. He's left that for Scott Boras, who's clearly doing a stellar job with his free agents this year. But I don't blame him at all. It's not his job to figure that out at the moment. He just wants to win a title with DC.
How Eric Hosmer got an 8-year deal with the San Diego Padres. I guess it was the team of 2020. Well, it's 2018. We'll see. I've seen some of these great potential teams of the future. You know what? They remain great potential teams of the future because they keep drafting that way. Drew, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems with it. I think maybe he could have done without the, if you ask, I'm going to get up and leave. But I didn't really have a problem with that either. Yeah, like Blake said, right now he should be completely focused on winning with the Nationals in 2018, and we'll kind of cross the 2019 bridge when he gets there.
He's been a fixture for so long that you think, you know, he comes across with the poise and maturity of someone who's 5 or 6 years older. In fact, sometime in the last week, somebody, I think it was Drew, did a piece on his picture, on his brother Brian trying to make the club. And just as something automatic, I listed Brian as his younger brother. And when I tweeted, oh, did I hear about that? But it just goes to show just, you know, what a presence that Bryce is. That you just really, he's 25 years old? No way. It just seems like he's been a part of the fabric of Washington for so long that he's got to be older than 25.
Yeah, I think you have to. We've watched him for 7 years now, and you still have to remind yourself how young he is, and it's been that long.
He was Eric Fetty's high school catcher.
Yeah, that's absurd. And Fetty's just trying to make his way into the majors now.
Right. When they talked about that, I just about died. So,
Remember, didn't he post something with was it Jameson Tyon from the Pirates as well?
Right, right.
Yeah, and he only broke into the majors full time last year.
Which just goes to show, I mean, there are not many 19-year-olds who make the name for themselves right off the bat. Alex Rodriguez, Ken Griffey Jr., some scrub by the name of Mickey Mantle. Don't know if you've ever heard him or not. You know, I mean, those who make a difference in under 20 is rare. But
just on top of being with the Nationals for so long, he's really been in the baseball spotlight for almost a decade now. It was 9 years ago when he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated and being named the chosen one.
Right, after he bounced balls off the scoreboard at the Trop at 17. Yeah. I mean, that's nuts. It's like, so what have you done with your life? I'm a biker. All right, anything in the chat?
Yeah, Seth said that he was interested to see what Matt Adams can do this spring training.
I'm curious too. I don't think you'll see a lot of Ryan Zimmerman. I don't think you'll see a lot of the regulars until you get later on. And so Adams, I'm very curious about. I wonder, even though they don't need to, whether they would stick about a day or two in left field. I saw that Adam Eaton said that left field was the hardest outfield position to play.
Right. Yeah, he was saying that just with the tail from right-handed hitters and with him being a left-handed thrower, he has to turn to throw the ball to second base or third base.
Would you agree with that, Drew?
Yeah, I would think so. And also, I think it'll probably seem a little more difficult to him, to at least at first, just because he hasn't played there a whole lot. He's primarily played center and right.
And right, yeah. Yeah, I was surprised about that. I know from the days when my dad played softball that you threw the worst outfielder in right. but I would have thought that center would be more difficult to play because you have to cover so much ground, and you really have to have a good arm. And so when he said that, you know, as someone who really hasn't played a lot of, I've never played real baseball, let's be honest. I was actually caught by surprise by that. I would thought it'd been center.
Yeah, I think he will find it a little more difficult, but I have no doubt that he can handle it.
All right, so here's our plan for the weekend. We are not doing every spring training game on Twitter because the radio is just too hard to follow for those games. So there are 2 games until we see you again next week. The opener Sunday or Friday tomorrow against the Astros, which is on MLB Network, by the way. I will be live tweeting that, and I will be live tweeting the game against the Braves on Sunday, which is on Masson. But if you remember from my games last year, I get them on delay through the computer package, so it won't be necessarily a full-time, real-time thing. But when Drew does the games, they will be in all real time this year because he's down there and there's no delay. Well, there's the 5 or 6 seconds, but that's, not the 30 to 45 seconds that Ricky and I ran into last year. So the plan, I counted today, the plan is for us to do all 12 of the television games, including the ones that are on away television, because I think Masson's only doing 7. And we will do live post-game shows because it's spring training for everyone, including us, right, guys?
Right.
After the primetime games, we're trying to get clarification from Masson on the game in D.C. against the Twins. It's not listed on being on television anywhere. On Nationals.com, it's listed as a radio game. What we may do for that one, because we're gonna owe you a season preview, is get together after that game, whether we live tweet it or not. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So we have a note into the Masson people seeing if that was an oversight or if they're really not televising it. So 12 live tweets and the 3 primetime games, 1 against the Mets, a split squad against Houston, and 1 against Miami, we'll treat like a regular season game and do a DoDCast after. All right. Drew, go read the site. Drew projected the entire 25-man opening day roster, and he needs people to go read that. So go do that. Any surprises, Drew, in that you might want to share?
No big surprises. I guess one kind of unorthodox thing about this year is just that there's so many returning players, and a lot more than in a typical year. I went through and I saw only 2 or 3 players I predicted would make the team were not with the team last year. So
it's very, very stable. I guess the one player I had trouble with doing the opening day lineups was Murphy.
Mhm.
I just wasn't sure. And so Blake will get this joke. I listed it as a Brucey bonus.
Yeah.
I won't explain that, but if you know what it is, it's funny. But that really is the only real wild card as far as I'm concerned. I projected the opening day lineup, and I have I'll tell you because I wrote it Monday. I've Eaton leading off, Rendon batting second, Harper hitting third, Zimmerman fourth, and I went with, if there's no Murph, and I went with Turner 5, Defoe 6, Taylor 7, who I don't think is an ideal 7 hitter, but I think will bat 7th, Wieters 8, and the pitcher 9th. I do think, guys, that once Murphy's back, that you'll see Martinez experiment with a pitcher at 8, and I think Turner will bat 9th. I'll start with Blake on that one.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in my piece. It's probably the best way to get his speed threat out there without batting leadoff, because obviously the pitcher's then cleared the way. And I think that's the whole concept behind it. You get your second leadoff hitter to steal some bases and put someone on base for your leadoff guy, who obviously his job's to get on base as well, get base hit. So yeah, 9 could make sense. And when Murph comes back potentially mid-April, worst case scenario, that's probably the best time to experiment with it, see if it works with this Nats team.
You looking forward to seeing Steven Strasburg hit 8th through?
No, not necessarily. I think if Trey Turner hits like he did in the postseason last year, he's a solid 9 hitter. But if he hits like he's capable of, I think he's a little too good of a hitter for me to put him there. I think if I was going to put someone 9th and Daniel Murphy misses opening day, I think Wilmer Defoe could be a great 9 hitter.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something to keep an eye on.
In the almost year I've known Drew, it's the first time I've ever seen him take a swipe at anybody besides me.
I mean, I don't have any problems with Turner. I think he struggled just because he's coming back from the wrist injury and he's pressing a little bit too much in the postseason. But I expect a much better offensive production from him this season.
Don't worry, Trey. If you're watching, I like you.
I agree with Trey. Anthony Rendon is my favorite player. All right. So I wrote that. Drew wrote the big slider from the 25 and Blake's piece on where Trey Turner should hit. And that was a good piece. I really enjoyed that. All right. So tomorrow I'll have something on Dave Martinez and a close look from Sam Phillips at what Sean Doolittle and his relationship with the city of Washington. So that's what we got going on for you tomorrow, along with the live tweets for both the television games on Friday and Sunday. You can follow us on Twitter, and wish you that you would, at District on Deck. Give us a like on Facebook. It's pretty harmless, at District on Deck. And, of course, like and subscribe here on YouTube. So the next time that we're with you in this format will be next Thursday night at 9 o'clock, and Ross Steinberg will be joining Drew and myself to go through the first week of the preseason. But as we said, they play tomorrow. It may not count for anything, but they play tomorrow. They wear uniforms, and it's on television. And so I'll talk to you on Twitter tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. And so for Drew, Blake, and the rest of the staff of District on Deck, I'm Ron Juckett. Have yourself a good night.